Welcome, and thank you for coming. Welcome to the third talk of the Martha's Vineyard Author Series in 2018. My name is Sue Ellen Lazarus, and I organize the Author Series and also the Martha's Vineyard Book Festival, which and the Book Festival next summer will be on August 3rd and 4th. So some of you are planning your summer vacation. You can mark it on your calendars. We're very pleased to have author Nafissa Thompson-Spires here tonight, all the way from Champaign, Urbana, Illinois. She will be interviewed by her publisher, the incredible Dawn Davis, a dream team of two dynamic. Our next talk will be with Cecile Richards on August 5th, the former head of Planned Parenthood. Very timely subject, so we hope you'll all be there. We will have Nell Scoville on August 9th. Nell Scoville is a comedy writer, one of the early comedy writers in Hollywood, who was very instrumental in bringing out the lack of diversity, the lack of women in the industry, and the need to do something about it. She with Sheryl Sandler, wrote Lean In. Tayari Jones on August 16th, Michael Pollan on August 19th. Michael Pollan is sold out. So if you want to go to any of these other ones, we encourage you to get your tickets as soon as possible. Go home, go online, and do it. Just a quick thank you to our many sponsors that make this programming possible. We have 36 VIB sponsors who we love very much. And those are the people in the front rows, and thank them for their support. Cape Cod 5 Cent Savings Bank, Martha's Vineyard Savings Bank, the Vineyard Gazette, who wrote a lovely story, an excellent article about Nafissa's book and her writing process in the Friday issue of the Gazette. Lunch and Grapes is our partner. They're here tonight by the book. Molly Coogan is the manager, and we encourage you to go back there and see her if you haven't already bought the book. To support independent bookstores, to support authors, and to support publishing, you need to buy the book. Cape Air, WBUR, Stina Sayer Design, Chronix Market are all our sponsors as well. Many thanks to the Chilmark Community Center, the Chilmark Town Affairs Council, because those people, they provide staff, they provide volunteers, and it's the auspices under which we work. And all of the wonderful volunteers and staff who are here tonight, who work so hard to bring you this evening that both sounds good and is recorded so you can see it later. I also want to thank tonight a few volunteers and friends who step up to do great things for the authors. Amy Salzman and Randy Milch are hosting Nafissa. Howard Harrison has made sure that she gets around the island. So for me, a special thank you for taking care of the authors so well. And now to the business at hand. Interviewing Nafissa Thompson-Spires tonight is her publisher. And this is a rare thing when we get to get both author and publisher here together. Dawn Davis, she's a member of the Martha's Vineyard Book Festival Advisory Panel, and that's what makes her so famous to me. She's been a great help in planning the author series and in identifying authors for us. She's the publisher and founder of Simon & Schuster's Imprint 37 Inc., which is part of a trio publishing group at Simon & Schuster. Dawn's been in the publishing industry for over 25 years. She's made it her mission to publish authors from a diverse array of backgrounds and cultures and viewpoints. She published the Pulitzer Prize-winning novel, The Known World by Edward Jones, which is one of my favorite books. And she worked with Chris Gardner on his memoir, memoir, The Pursuit of Happiness, which I guess later became a movie. And tonight we're also thrilled to be welcoming a stunning new talent in literary fiction, Nafissa Thompson-Spires. Nafissa earned a doctorate in English from Vanderbilt University and a Master of Fine Arts in Creative Writing from the University of Illinois. Since graduating, her short stories have appeared in Story Quarterly, Lunch Ticket, and the Feminist Wire, to name a few. In 2014, she won the Josephine M. Brees Memorial Award in Short Fiction. She was also a 2016 Fellow of the Kalamazoo Writers Workshop. Currently, Nafissa is a visiting assistant professor of English and African American Studies at the University of Illinois. So we're very lucky to have her here tonight. It's her first visit to the island, so we want to give her a special welcome. And we're thrilled to get the opportunity to discuss her book, The Heads of the Colored People.
So I want to thank Sue Ellen for the programming. It's great to get bestsellers, and of course, who doesn't want to be in an audience where a best-selling author and a household name is talking to us? But she also scouts new talent, and she called me, and she has an eagle eye, and I think we are also lucky to have her as part of the community. So Sue Ellen, thank you so much for taking the chance. We are all eager to talk about Heads of the Colored People, which is a fantastic title, which we will get to. But I think the best way to kind of come into a book is to have the author read. So why don't we start with Nafissa reading one of my favorite stories from the book, Belle Lettre. And do you want to set it up for the audience?
Sure. And I also want to say thank you to everyone for coming. Thank you, Dawn, for joining us. Thank you so much, Sue Ellen, for everything you've done to organize this. Belle Lettre is an epistolary story that appears in the collection, and it's somewhat autobiographical in that my mother sent me what she called a care packet many years ago. She basically just assembled a bunch of crap from my childhood, threw it in a box, and mailed it to me. She didn't do it very carefully, and one of the things that was in there was a letter from my childhood bully's mother that said that I was the problem and not her child. And my parents went back and forth with this woman over my elementary school years. This daughter of hers and I were the only two black girls in our class for a period. So I decided I would try to kind of reimagine what that must have been like for them to be fighting, especially in letter form. And that's kind of where this story came from. So it's set in 1991, and because it's epistolary, it has all of the letter formatting, and I won't read any of that. I'll just get into the content of all the letters. So this is Belle Lettre. October 1st, 1991. Hello, Monica. I'm sure you remember me from the class field trip to the Getty in September. It has been brought to my attention by Mrs. Watson that Fatima may have started a nasty rumor about my Christinia. I hope to clear this up, as we both know how ugly these things can get. It is true that Christinia's hamster died recently, but it is absolutely not true that it died at Chrissy's hand. At no time has Chrissy ever put ham bone or any of her previous hamsters in the microwave, dryer, or dishwasher. What kind of child would make something like that up? It sounds, and I say this respectfully, so I hope you won't be offended, like Fatima has had a very hard time getting acclimated here, and that's understandable. But I do hope you deal with her before such incidents become frequent. Children who start lying young often end up with long-time patterns of dishonesty. All best, Dr. Lucinda Johnston, PsyD, licensed therapist, Welcome Wagon, Westwood Primary School, events coordinator, Jack and Jill, Claremont Branch. Dear Lucinda, I apologize for my late reply, but I only found her letter at the bottom of Fatima's backpack when I did my weekly cleaning. Thank you for writing me, though I have already spoken with Mrs. Watson, who made it very clear that she never heard Fatima say a thing about Christinia or her dead hamsters. It was Renee Potts who claimed that Fatima started the rumor. Fatima says she only repeated what Christinia herself told her. Many of Fatima's stories about Christinia this year and last, which I won't recount here, have been disturbing to say the least. But none as disturbing as Christinia's enjoyment of torturing rodents. Fatima has a strong imagination and writes beautiful lyric poetry, which she started reading at age 4. But she does not have a history of lying or telling gruesome stories. And unlike Christina, she has no history of running off with other girls' shoes while their feet dangle from the monkey bars. I'm absolutely sure that Fatima wouldn't tell stories about Christina, the hamsters, or the microwave if they weren't based on something Christina said to herself first. I appreciate your concerns about Fatima, and even though Christina has made it much more difficult for her to find friends at Westwood, Fatima will acclimate soon. She's going to a sleepover at Emily's this weekend. Is Christina going? If so, I hope you will encourage her to play nice. Best, Monica Willis, PhD. P.S. It's true that liars who start young often end up with psychological and social problems of the sort Christina has demonstrated over the past year. How lucky for you and for Christina that she has access to psychotherapy for your practice. Dear Monica, I never expected so much defensiveness when I wrote my original letter. Perhaps you misread it. All I wanted to emphasize is that I understand why a girl in Fatima's position and one with her background would make up such stories. It's hard to get attention in a new place, and Christina has been established at Westwood for quite a while. There's probably some petty jealousy going on, but I think we can resolve this. I don't know how you did things at Fatima's old school in Fresno, was it? But here, we try to help the children work through their problems without getting too involved. I suppose you already know, and have known all along, that Christina will not attend Emily's party. So there's no need for me to encourage her to play nice. You probably heard that history already, so I won't rehash it, but I will say that it wasn't Chrissy's fault that Emily broke her nose when she fell. Besides, it was 3 years ago, and we've given the Kims our sincerest apologies. Finally, and I say this respectfully, but maybe it would be nice to go through Fatima's backpack every night instead of once a week. I heard from more than one parent that it smells like eggs. My best, Dr. Lucinda Johnston, licensed therapist, author of Jane of a Child, Welcome Wagon Westwood Primary School, events coordinator Jack and Jill Footwatch. Dear Lucinda, or should I say Dr. Johnston, I'd like to resolve this as much as you would, but that won't happen if all of your letters begin and end with backbiting. I asked about Emily's party sincerely and in good conscience, though after speaking to the Kemps, I can see why they'd hesitate to invite Christina. I would ask you to consider this, however. If Fatima is the problem, why is she growing in popularity, while Christina is only growing in girth and the number of casualties associated with her name? I'm not of the mind that the only 2 black children in the class should be enemies, nor do I like the attention it draws to them or their parents when they're already in a difficult position. I would think that a black woman of your stature and success would understand how isolating work and school environments like Westwood can be for people like us, which is why Jordan and I hesitated to send Fatima to a PWI. I hoped Christina and Fatima could be friends and could support each other in this space, but it's been clear since 2nd grade that you and Christina are not willing to make that work. You could encourage your child to be cordial, however, and less brutal. You could spend more time with her so she doesn't lash out at others. You should get the help you both need in overcoming your tendencies towards pettiness. I'm sure Fatima would let Christina into her growing circle, even her after-school reading club, if Christina would only apologize and behave. Jealousy can also become a lifelong problem. On that note, I hate to bring this up now, but we were surprised by how poorly Christina behaved when Fatima's poem went over hers last year. I'd like to make sure we don't end up with a repeat performance of that tantrum when the poetry competition runs around this time. As for the hard-boiled egg, we resolved that last spring and bought Fatima a new backpack, and I believe you knew that already. We should talk about some concrete ways we can help encourage our girls to get along. Perhaps Mrs. Watson can help since she's mentioned Christina's problematic behavior before. Something to the effect of, if we don't fix things now, she'll have a hard road ahead of her. Cheers, Dr. Monica Willis, PhD, author of Every Voice Counts, Helping Children of Color Succeed at Predominantly White Schools. Monica, excuse the informal note. Mrs. Watson told me herself at Pavilions that it doesn't matter how brilliant the child is, no one will ask about her grades later in life, but they will want to know how well socialized she was. She made it no secret that she was talking about Fatima, not Chrissy. And to that point, I think you're doing both yourself and Fatima a great injustice by continually emphasizing her brilliance over the other children. Lots of people skip grades, and skipping kindergarten isn't something to brag about. I doubt that the standards at the old school were as rigorous as those at Westwood. Maybe a stint in kindergarten would have cultivated her social and problem-solving skills so she wouldn't run home and tell her mother everything. Children need strength of character. If you'll recall, moreover, I was there at the recital where Fatima read her award-winning poem, and while my doctorates, yes, plural, may not be in literature, I'm pretty sure hardly anyone would call Butterfly Pie a work of poetic genius. You can't rhyme pie with pie multiple times and call that poetry. You just can't. We are not self-conscious about Christinia's blackness. I attended Westwood myself as a child and was very happy there, even though at the time I was the only black child in the entire K through 6 division. Perhaps the kids at Fatima's old school were bad influences on her. Why did she change schools after first grade anyway? That's generally a bad sign. Isn't your degree, by the way, in EDD, Lucinda? Lucinda, it's hard to believe you're not a brain surgeon with your manifold doctorates and strong sense of logic. Fatima changed schools because we moved. Was she supposed to commute from Claremont to Fresno every morning so she could attend her old campus? I'm not surprised if Fatima's subtle wordplay was lost on you, since it's clear reading problems run in the family. Fatima said she saw Christinia struggling in the Panda reading group, and Mrs. Watson hinted that the iguanas, Fatima's and Emily's group, are reading much more advanced work than Charlotte's Web or the Boxcar children. Fatima started on Little Women during her own free time, and has read through a number of Judy Blume and Beverly Cleary works that I read as a much older girl. And Fatima has a poem coming out in Ladybug magazine in a few months. Not everyone is suited for literary work. I'm sure you know that from your own writing struggles and the extra effort you had to put behind your research in order for anyone to take it seriously. Isn't there still some kind of issue with you and your last project and the IRB, or is the issue with Dr. Patel's ex-wife? I know someone who might be able to clear things up for you if you'd like the help. My very best, Monica. Monica, Mrs. Watson said there's absolutely no reading group higher than the Panda group, and the iguanas have been paired to minimize their various social anxieties. Chrissy has no social anxieties, and if she's ever struggled, it's because the other children don't understand her. And Chrissy read that abridged version of Little Women yesterday on the way home from soccer practice. The pictures took up more space than the words. But now I see where Fatima's delusions of grandeur come from. You are unfortunately enabling your child's arrogance and stifling her growth even at this young age. I write about this very thing in chapter 3 of my first book, Caution with Coddling. There is no trouble with my current research or the Institutional Review Board. Regards, Lucinda. Lucinda, Christinia may not have notable social anxieties, but that's because she dominates the other children. There has to be some insecurity behind that, perhaps about her size. I heard, and I won't reveal the source lest you start harassing her too, but I can tell you it was not Fatima, that Christinia steals the other kids' lunch scraps from the cafeteria and bullied that poor kid with the unfortunate ears into giving her all of his pepperoni for the next month. I really hope that in addition to help for her lies and early signs of psychosis, you will get Christinia some help for her weight problem before she ends up, and I say this respectfully, so I hope you won't be offended in the least, like you. Children do pick these things up from their mothers. If by your first book you mean your unpublished dissertation, I've heard plenty about it and the unsavory circumstances of your defense. Wasn't Dr. Patel married when he joined your committee and divorced by the end of it? Is that why you say your oldest child, Thaniel, has good hair, and why Christinia is always bragging about having Indian in her blood, despite those naps in her head? I thought she meant a different kind of Indian, but now things are clearer. Does Mr. Johnston know those may not be his children, or is he in on the roost with Dr. Patel? Take care, Monica. Monica, I'm not going to dignify most of your comments with a response. This will be my last letter, because I can see I'm not going to get anywhere with you. It's funny to me that you would try to reactivate those rumors about my strictly professional working relationship with Dr. Patel, especially since we've all heard things about Fatima's biological father. Let's see. 3 kids, 2 of them with Anglo names, and 1 of them with an Arabic one. 2 with Mr. Willis's features, 1 kid, Fatima, with a more African look. Mathematically speaking, it seems you picked up more on your travels to Cameroon than those 70s-style caftans you insist on wearing. To your point about Chrissy's weight, we're working with a children's nutritionist who specializes in lymphatic disorders. At one time, I wondered if we were too harsh in recommending that you and your family wait another year before joining our Jack and Jill chapter. But I can see now that we were right. I'm afraid I can never recommend you for our club. You display a volatile combination of residual ghetto and uppity negress, and that will be your undoing if Fatima isn't. Sincerely, Dr. Lucinda M. Johnson, licensed therapist, author of Fate of the Child, Welcome Live, and Westwood Primary School Events Coordinator, Jack and Jill. Claremont chapter. Lucinda, sorry, allergies. I will say that if someone here is uppity, it's the one of us with two little brats who have run off 3 au pairs. Who even uses that term? If they're not French, and I'm pretty sure your cousin Shaquana isn't, they're nannies. And if they're your own relatives, then they're babysitters or bums who need a hookup. This bouginess and the way it keeps you from connecting with your kids is half of your problem. The other half you probably can't fix without medication. Good thing you can write prescriptions. Oh wait, you're not that kind of doctor. I've been forthright about Fatima's biological father, but I certainly don't appreciate Christinia's relentless and uneducated use of the phrase African booty scratcher. And how can I be uppity when I've never had any help and started out as a single parent before marrying Jordan? If putting myself through school and becoming the highest educated person in my family with no help but God's makes me uppity, then so be it. We are humble people in spite of our education and finances, and we have more class in our excrement than you have in your whole hamster murdering family. And yes, there is a bit of the ghetto still left in me, enough to tell you can finish the fight if it gets to that point. We're never too far from Oakland or the South Side. Let's keep it real, Monica. Monica, I do believe that was a threat. The Claremont Police Department will not take this lightly. While I don't approve of Christinia's use of the term African booty scratcher, she was only stooping to Fatima's level when she used it. I don't know where you get all of this African folklore Fatima has been spreading around the school, but I should think that no educated person would tell stories of a mermaid who will snatch you bald-headed if you go underwater. It took me hours to console Christinia and to convince her that her delayed hair growth is unrelated to swimming lessons or any mythical mermaids. And tell Fatima to stop pinning notes to the inside of Chrissy's book bag when she's not looking. Chrissy could injure herself on a dirty safety pin knowing you people and end up with hepatitis A, B, C, or worse. And tell her to stop harassing Chrissy with pitiful insults about her appearance and dark-skinned self. I've tried to resolve our differences by working directly and exclusively with you and Mrs. Watson, but I will have no choice but to contact Principal Lee in addition to the police if this persists. Lucinda. Lucinda, only you would suggest something so disgusting as intentionally injuring a child with dirty safety pins. But then again, it was Christinia who put that tag on Renee Potts' chair last year and caused her to need a tetanus shot. Perverse minds think alike. I can say with complete assurance that Fatima would never make fun of someone for being too dark, nor would she use the word skinned in a sentence. In fact, she came home crying last year when Christina called her a blackie. Jordan and I have never raised Fatima or any of our children to be color-struck, and that's why we would never participate in an organization such as Jack and Jill. We only applied because we thought we might find like-minded people, but if you're the representative, we'll pass. The paper bag test may be long gone, but the slave mentalities are not. And your Chrissy is bald-headed because you don't know how to do your own hair, let alone hers. Don't blame any mythical mermaids for that. Now I see that Christinia is blaming Fatima for many of the things she is doing herself. You probably haven't read that Shirley Jackson story, Charles, have you? I would imagine it's too difficult for you to process, but sometimes children, especially those who don't get enough support at home, do these things. Lose my number and address and stop making your kid do your dirty work. In. Monica, turn blue, turn blue, turn blue, blue, blue. Look, I've written a poem. Perhaps I should send it to Ladybug magazine. Love, Lucinda. Lucinda, you need Jesus. Do not write to me again or I will contact my lawyer. I've asked Mrs. Watson to check Fatima's backpack for correspondence from you, and I've made it clear that I don't want further contact from Christinia. You are not to speak to Fatima. Monica. Dear Drs. Willis, we would like to formally invite you and yours to our annual Jack and Jill Gala, October 25th, 1991. Attire is black tie. Please respond using the enclosed note card. We hope to see you there. If you've received this invitation, is in error. Anonymous. Lucinda, I'm beginning to think you're insane. There's absolutely no way that Fatima called Christinia's grandmother, may she rest in peace, the B word, nor did she call her a match. And I'm sure she never said, I'm glad she's dead. We don't expose Fatima to bad language. Our child is not the one who brags about killing animals and putting them on roller coasters to see if their eyes pop out. It's a shame you and Christina have so much trouble writing and reading because these stories could rival the best of any true crime out there. And that should scare you. Because it's the ones who start with the rodents who eventually graduate to the babies and the grandparents. May they rest in peace. Where will Christina be in 10 years, and do you want to see her get to that point? I'm requesting a meeting with Principal Lee, Mrs. Watson, and you and Mr. Johnston so that we can nip this crazy mess in the bud once and for all. Monica. Dear Mrs. Johnston and Mrs. Willis, it has come to my attention that your respective daughters, Christina and Fatima, engaged in a brutal fistfight at school. As you know, this behavior violates not only the Westwood Code of Conduct, but also our core values, and is punishable by expulsion. I'm sending this letter as a follow-up to the discussion I had with each of you over the phone. I would like to meet with the two of you and Mrs. Watson ASAP. My secretary will schedule. Sincerely, Principal Lee. Dear Drs. Willis, the school's board and I thank you for your generous donation and for agreeing to serve on the Westwood Welcome Wagon. Given the sharp improvement of your children's behavior, we can agree to rescind our threat of their expulsion from school. The reputation of our school depends on the efforts of involved parents like yourself. Sincerely, Principal Lee. And this is the final letter. Lucinda, thank you for inviting Fatima to Chrissy's party. She will be happy to attend. And thank you for the lovely fruit basket. You're so bad. It's true Mrs. Watson looks terrible in red, and yet Principal Lee finds reasons to look. But I won't say anything more in writing. Jordan and I will discuss the Jack and Jill potluck with you when we see you. Exo, Monica.
So, as you can see, she's funny, right? She's super funny, but the collection, and it is a story collection, actually opens and closes with stories that deal with the vulnerability of the Black body, particularly the Black male body. But there's humor threaded throughout. They're not all as laugh out loud funny as Mel Lestra, but they are all funny. Why did you choose humor to deal with something so serious? How did you come to that?
In a lot of ways, I think humor is my coping mechanism in life in general. And so it's a way that I can kind of disarm people. And then in the collection, I think that it especially works that way because we've seen a lot of police brutality, and that hasn't necessarily changed the fact that there's police brutality. But I think addressing it from a humorous or satirical lens can sometimes make us think a little bit differently about topics that seem like they've been exhausted or that we've become kind of anesthetized to. So I think humor in general disarms people and makes them think a little bit differently about the content.
Talk to me also about the format. You elected for your first book to use the story format, and I feel like short stories, when they're wonderful, is the world in miniature. You have all of the emotions, the kind of exquisite highs and the bitter lows and the disappointments. Was it hard to write stories? How did you come to that, or did they come to you?
It's funny because in an MFA program, you're generally trained to write stories, and I was working on long form. I was trying to write novels. But I find that stories can be really satisfying. People don't often buy short story collections as much as they buy novels, but a short story can give you like a nice taste of something before you fall asleep or on the way somewhere, and so it can feel like a full experience even if you're only reading a little piece of something. Whereas a novel was like a fully immersive experience, and you might not want to get back into it if you put it down. And so that's what I like about the form. And once I had the titular story in the collection, I started writing towards a particular theme that helped me kind of figure out what else should go into it.
So, Heads of the Colored People is, I think, a fantastic title. It came to me, I'm her editor, came to me with that title. I have to say, it is striking. It stops you in your tracks. Tell us a little bit about the origins of that particular title and phrase.
Yeah, Heads of the Colored People comes from my husband's research. He is an English professor, and he writes about several Black artists in the 19th century who were writing about abolition through the literary sketch form. And James McKean Smith is one of them, and he was writing along with Frances Ellen Watkins Harper. And all these people were publishing in Frederick Douglass's newspapers at the time, and they were kind of trying to use literary short sketches, really, really short stories, to teach what it would look like for Black people to have the full rights of citizenship. So they were using them as political tools, but also as literature. And I thought that McKean Smith's original collection, which is called The Heads of the Colored People Done with a Whitewash Brush, would be fun to try to update. So I was going back to his sketches and trying to write literally a one-to-one updating of each one. And that became really too restrictive for me. So I decided to write to the theme more generally. And I kind of borrowed from some of the things he's doing. So I'm thinking of heads as in psychology, phrenology, racial science, or racist science. There's a little head injury in one of the stories. So really I ended up borrowing just heads from McKean Smith.
You talk about the head injury. I love Elizabeth Strout. Amy and Isabel is one of my favorite novels. She uses, I feel like weather is a character in her writing. Like she puts you in Maine, and you can feel the elements, you can feel the cold. I feel as if in your book, the body is so important. The body and the vulnerability of the body, the toughness of the body all comes out. Talk to me a little bit about how you came to that.
Yeah, it's funny. I set out to write a collection about heads and that theme, but really the stories do end up being more about the body in some way. So the stories that frame it, as Dawn said, are about the vulnerability of the black body. The first one, a black cosplayer is gunned down at a convention, cosplay convention, something sort of like Comic-Con, but not exactly. And it's a network narrative, but you find out how this shooting affects all these different people in his life. And then the last story in the collection is also about another Black death, and it's a funeral singer who's exhausted from seeing so many black bodies coming in and out of the hospital, and she considers drowning her own baby, who is 18 months old. So there's lots of that, and there's stories that deal with chronic illness throughout the collection. And I think it's because my own body was going through so many things at that time. I was seeing all these horrible things on the news and having very strong physical reactions to them, but I was also dealing with my own chronic illness and getting to a diagnosis for that illness at the time. And I think that mild obsession came out through the art in some way.
Talk to me about your influences as a writer. I feel like every young black woman writer is influenced by Toni Morrison. I could be wrong in your case, I don't know. But I remember as an editor, it seemed like for a period, everybody was writing in the shadow of Toni Morrison. Who's influenced you the most?
I hate answering this just because I feel self-conscious about my list. It's mostly men, and I feel like I have to say a more PC version of the answer. But I really love Ishmael Reed and the kind of like hard satire that he was doing, the things that he was doing with form. I think he inspired a lot of what I was trying to do in the collection. Percival Everett, Matt Johnson, those are my favorite writers, and they're kind of part of what's called the postal movement. So that genre is my favorite too.
Has there been any surprise in the reaction to the collection? Anything in the process that surprised you? I mean, it is dark, but it's funny. I know when we were sending it out for blurbs, usually as an editor, we are begging for blurbs. I mean, I feel like sometimes I can stand in Times Square and just, hope that someone will give me a blurb for a galley. But with Nafissa, we had like a dozen people that we had no connection to really send us blurbs. That was surprising for me, not because I didn't think it was excellent, but because of the time that it takes to get people to read a galley in advance. What's been surprising for you?
Yeah, how nice people have been, thank God, and people who are willing to work, but also how dark the collection ended up being, because I think of myself as a melancholy but lighthearted person. I know that's oxymoron, but I tend to only watch humor and read humor, and I like reading dark stuff, but my stories are actually quite dark. And so Morrison was an influence I was trying to avoid. I thought, oh, she just makes such dark, it's beautiful, but it's so dark. And I have a lot of the same tropes in my own work that she has in hers, and that wasn't something I expected.
Which story was the most fun to write and which was the most difficult to write?
I think the titular story, Heads, was the most fun to write because it just plays with structure. It's kind of saying a big screw you to all of the goals of an MFA program, and it was my way of getting back at some people who were giving me negative comments on my work when I was a grad student, so it's kind of a petty story. The hardest one to write was definitely the last story, which is Wash Clean the Bones. It's the one about the mother who tries to drown her own baby, and that's just so far from anything I've ever done, and it's the only one that doesn't use humor anyway. It's just a straight realistic story.
Talk to me a little bit about what's next for you. Are you going to stick with stories? I know you're working on a novel. How different is the process?
The novel is next, and I know it's due to you soon. January.
I wasn't pushing.
The novel has been different because even though, like I said, I started out trying to write novels and then I moved to stories, which is the opposite of what most people do. I could research forever. I'm a researcher by trade, I'm a literary critic by trade, and so it's really hard for me to know when something's finished and when I've done enough research and due diligence on it. So that's something that I'm having a harder time with than I anticipated. I do plan to go back to stories though after the novel. I already have my third book in mind, and I think I know what the theme of that collection is going to be.
You think what?
I think I know the theme of it so far. Which I kind of
Want to share that with us, or do you have superstitions? Or?
I'll say, I do kind of feel superstitious. I'll say it's a suburban gothic collection, so that's what I'm thinking about. Dark stuff that goes on in neighborhoods.
Nothing dark happens in Chillmark, right? So just not too expected. What would you like the audience and your readers to take away from this collection? What do you want them to leave with?
I hope that they laugh, and I hope that they think more deeply about the ways that we have framed Blackness. One of the things that I was inspired to sort of intervene in is this idea of what it means to be authentically Black. I grew up in a pretty white school, a private school where I was one of the only Black girls, as I said, and both within that space and outside of it, I was constantly being told I wasn't Black enough. You talk like a white girl, you do these things, those are not Black things. And I think that that's nonsense, right? We all know that. We all know people who are exceptional, but they aren't really exceptional. They're just part of the larger continuum of what it means to be Black. There's not this narrow monolithic thing. And so I think that by writing about Black nerds and Black cosplayers and all these characters we haven't seen so much of, that's one of the things I'm intentionally trying to address. But I also think books can be your friends, and I hope that my book comforts some person, whether that's a child or an old person or someone who's sick and kind of bedridden, whatever that means, that the book is a presence in their life.
Well, I loved it because we did see characters that we don't get to see in literature, who we interact with in real life, but it seems like there are always these kinds of tropes, or often these tropes, but we were so fresh. And that is what all of the reviewers have said. I mean, this book made every list of what we're looking forward to, books of the spring. It's been fantastic. So you teach, I'm going to shift a little bit, in case there are any writers in the room, aspiring writers, or people who are haven't told other people in their life that they're writing, but they have something in the top drawer. You teach writing. So what advice would you give to someone out there who is working with a story or working with a novel? What would you tell them?
It's going to give away what I often write when I sign books, which is don't let anyone else tell your story. I think everyone has a story, and a lot of people, are dabbling, as Dawn is suggesting, but are maybe afraid to put work out there, and build a community, whether that means for publication or just for yourself. The more people who put eyes on it, the more comfortable and confident you're going to be over time in your own writing skills. And also, what I always tell my students is to write what you can when you can. Most writers have this sort of practice that's not my practice at all. Like, oh, I get up at dawn with the birds and I write at 5 a.m. and it's all beautiful and I write for like 3 hours and then I have my first cup of black coffee and then I write for 3 more hours. I don't do any of that. I write when I feel like writing, and that's usually not until like 1 p.m. Because that's when I get up in the morning. And it's, I write for as long as I need to that day to feel like I've gotten it out of my system, but I don't think that really strict, disciplined ways of writing necessarily serve everyone. And so figuring out what your own process is, what's going to serve your own personal goals is the best thing.
So you've been compared to Paul Beatty in terms of using humor as a device to kind of really explore some darker themes. You've been compared to Junot Diaz. Is that intimidating to be suddenly like you're in your own world, you're writing your own, you're in your own head, and then suddenly you have New York Magazine and the Times comparing you to some of these more established writers? What's that like? Does that block you for the next? Do you feel like you have to live up to this expectation, or?
I'm trying not to think about any of that. It's nice. That's the best. It feels really good to feel like you're getting some validation and through comparison. And I love Paul Beatty's work. He's another influence of mine. But as far as the pressure to live up to something goes, I'm really trying to stamp that down and not think about it at all.
So I think we were going to open it up to questions. Is that right? Yeah. Does anyone have any questions?
I wondered to what extent you're trying
Wait.
There can be a microphone.
We're going to give you a microphone.
Okay.
And we were going to go do
I wondered to what extent you think of your writing as creating or recreating a world. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think trying to duplicate what we actually have is what I'm more interested in doing, to show that this already exists rather than invent something new most of the time. My stories are realistic even though they use humor, so yeah, I think most of the time I'm just trying to represent what I see.
I think there was one in the fourth row. Did you have one, Sharon? Oh, I thought.
Here we go.
Yes, I'm curious
I
how
can
much.
come up and ask it myself, I don't really need the mic. Hi, I'm curious, given the topic of some of the stories, do you have readers before your editor, and if so, who are they?
Going through grad school, that's all you do is workshop stories. And so I have had readers for a lot of them. Some people call them beta readers, or I like to just call them your network, your support system. But I prefer the people who weren't in my grad school program. So I had like a secondary set of readers that I trusted more, and those are the people that I would still send my work to. And then I go to conferences all the time and meet new people, and they become my readers as well.
I'm curious about your early childhood, if you're willing and able to share a little bit about where you came from.
Okay. I was born in Southern California, and that's where I grew up, in the Inland Empire, so like an hour east of LA. And as I said, I went to a predominantly white private school. Both my parents were educators, and so they really were afraid of public school for some reason, though. I begged to get out of private school for my senior year of high school, and I had so much fun in public school that 1 year. I'm not sure if I would have loved it for all 4 years, but for that 1 year, it was like, what were you so afraid of? Nothing happened to me. You know, I had friends who were like-minded, so kind of a sheltered childhood, and I read a lot. I read all the time, and my favorite books didn't seem to represent the kinds of things that I was going through, and so that's one of the things I was interested in, was telling the stories that I wish I had grown up with, or telling the stories that I wish I'd been able to read sooner.
To what extent, I think for all fiction, I feel like it's the rare writer who doesn't draw from their own biography to write. And to what extent, I'm sure we're all wondering, like, how much was your mother really like the PhD character in the Belletra? Like, to what extent do you draw from your own story?
I like to say I take spy notes, so you're supposed to be carrying the spy and decide that it's really wrong to like observe people and write down what they're doing, but I didn't get that lesson from it. I read it and I was like, this is awesome, and it just made me fun what everybody's doing, and so if you see me with a little book, I'm not being nice, most likely I'm writing down some stuff that you probably will see later on in something. But I think you can get natural dialogue that way, and you can get a lot of, again, representing what's real instead of making up things from that. And so that's one of the ways that I write, but I also do borrow from my own life, and this story is probably the most autobiographical story in the collection, Belletra, the one that I read, because I told you I really did have a childhood bully. Her mother we were the only two black girls in our class. Her mother was terrible, and my mother was kind of being terrible too, and she recognizes herself in that story. She laughed about it a lot when she read it. I think she was trying to pretend, like overperform that she was okay with it, but she swears that she just loves it and it's hilarious. So.
You mentioned about your writing process right here.
Oh.
Writing process, and how long did this take you? What was your journey in producing and writing this book?
It feels wrong to say this, but I actually wrote this collection really quickly, and that's because I wrote it as a distraction from something else I was supposed to be doing, and I'm really productive when I'm doing what I'm not supposed to be doing. So I was supposed to be revising a novel for an agent who wanted me to change the age of the characters, and I just didn't feel like doing it. And I was like, I'm going to write stories because that's more fun. And so I wrote most of these really quickly. I would say from, I think it was in November when I decided to put down that novel, November to March or something like that. And I had a few of them from grad school, but most of them, once I knew that theme, again, that titular story, Heads of the Colored People, I was like, this is what I want to do, and it was pretty easy to fill it in.
The title story is exquisite. I mean, she plays with form. They're characters that you just don't get to see on the page, and I think it really kind of distinguishes Nafissa. I do think that we are going to see a lot. You're like at the beginning of this kind of rock star career, but
I'd like to direct my question to Nafissa.
Oh, sorry.
I'm also kind of interested in your story, particularly two things. One is, when did you begin to sort of appreciate that you had a gift for writing? And then beyond that, the need to write. When you talked about starting to write around 1 o'clock in the afternoon and then writing until you got it out of your system, so that's talking about there's a need to tell stories. And so I'm just kind of curious, you obviously have a gift, but then there has to be a need. So I'm just kind of curious when that kind of shows up in your life.
That's a great question. That's a great question. I don't think I've ever not been writing. I was a kid who loved stationery and I've always had computers in my life because I'm young enough, but I would print my stories all the time. I would type them up. I would do whatever I could to get them out there. Even when I was 3 and 4 and 5, I was writing stuff. So I think I always wanted to write and was intrinsically motivated to write. But I think getting encouragement from people, this is actually good, or keep working on it, read some more stuff, and you'll be able to figure some things out. Those things really helped me build up a sense of confidence that I could write. And then going to grad school and writing a dissertation, which is a book, before I wrote this book, really helped me with the discipline part. What's my own routine? How do I need to write every day or every other day in order to actually produce? And so I think that was good for me to figure out a schedule.
As a professor, can you tell us something that you've learned from your students that's informed your own thinking about writing?
This might feel like I'm not answering the question directly, but I kind of am. And that's that I think students, especially in this moment, but probably always, really want to talk about hard subjects and they want to be challenged to read those things. And so this is not a dig against my program, but I'm the only person of color on the fiction side of the faculty in creative writing. And so my students often come into my classes and say, I've never read a Black lesbian before, or I've never read any story by a disabled Latina. They've never read any of these sort of intersectional identities. They've read a lot of white men. And I'm always for rounding race, and we're going to have hard conversations. We're going to talk about how do you represent characters effectively. We're going to talk about how do you do this ethically. We're going to talk about all of the research that's undergirding those representations. And they're hungry for it. They're nervous about it, but we acknowledge that like all of writing is being anxious at some point and starting to manage the anxiety. And I think they all come out better. My evaluations are always like, I hadn't learned any of these things in my other classes. I wish that we'd gotten this all along. And students kind of end up depending on me for other support that they probably shouldn't be. But coming to my office hours too much, talking about, how do I deal with being in a university situation. And I think that they are getting what they need because I force them to talk about hard things. And that all students are probably craving that, whether they say it or not.
There's someone in the front row who's had a question for a couple. I'm sorry. And then back up.
In regard to Nafissa's editor, so what's it like to be an editor? Do you just sit around and read all day? What's it really like?
That's the TV version where we sit around and read all day. For every Nafissa, for every submission that you open that starts with a story like Heads of the Colored People, you read a lot of things that are very much works in progress, to be diplomatic, things that are horrible, and then you read some things that are good and in the process of being better. But beyond that, we do just even the title. So a major account said the title's too controversial. You have to change the title. And so I spent hours talking with Nafissa and her agent and my team about, as she mentioned, this title is rooted in history, and it's rooted in a particular kind of papers, and it's important to Nafissa that she keep it. So I spent a lot of my time in meetings, like everybody else, and answering email. And some of it's important, like how do you put a jacket on a title like this, and is this the right title, and if this account will take 3,000 fewer copies, do we still want to do it? And then the good news is you read something that takes your breath away, or something like The Known World, and you feel like it's worth all of those meetings and all of those emails. We had.
Thank you. Nafissa, you talk about in the book, in many ways, this collection is an embodiment around So, as an academic writer scholar too, I'm going to ask you this question. What's the intention of the writing? Right? Because for some, like myself, I look at the writing as also a form of social activism. Right? And so you're writing fiction. So if you can perhaps explore that with us.
Yeah, that's a really good question, and it's something I've been thinking a lot about, and I think a lot of people are thinking about. I do like to think that writing should be, or that any art in general should, it often is best when it has some sort of activism behind it, and for me this is a form of activism. Not all people believe that, it's kind of a controversial stance. I try not to be super pedagogical or didactic in what I'm doing, even though it is rooted in all this research, but at the end of the day I try to let people make their own decisions, and I'm hoping that I'm posing them towards something like what I would like to see, which is a more progressive way of thinking about race, a more progressive way of thinking about illness and disability and all of these other things. And so it's hard because writing can't always do all of that work, and that's something that I've written about as well. I had an article in the Paris Review recently that's about, LitHub, that's about the sort of ethics of writing and the limitations of satire, the limitations of empathy, and whether you can actually change people's perspectives really at the end of the day. Can you actually change them through this kind of work? And I think there are people who are always receptive to it, and that maybe a third of the people are really willing to go this way, and maybe a third of the people are possibly willing to go that way, and there are some people who will never change their minds no matter what they read, and probably wouldn't even pick up my book to begin with. So that's the hard part, is knowing those limitations are there, but I think it's important to keep doing the work, for sure.
I'd like to know, well, first of all, I'm a college professor at the graduate level, and I'd like to know what your thoughts are in terms of the academic preparation for students that enters your class in terms of basic writing skills.
Well, I don't teach any basic writing or anything. I teach graduate students and undergrads who are creative writing majors, so they're already sort of, they're self-selecting. They've gone through the lower division classes to get to this point. They've decided that this is what they care about. They're MFA students or they are majors. So that makes a big difference in the quality of the writing, but everyone can constantly use more preparation. I think that that's a national conversation, an international conversation. And I definitely see in the comp kinds of classes, not creative writing, but composition and rhetoric types of classes, that those questions are still relevant. People aren't prepared, and probably No Child Left Behind, and the testing environment has made those things worse, I would imagine.
You've twice mentioned the idea of ethically writing. Would you speak a little bit more about that?
Yeah, this is something that I've programmed in my class as well. And it's that because writing can be a form of activism, whether you choose for it to be or not, you're still putting material out into the world that has the potential to harm. And we've seen tons of representations that are harmful ad nauseum for centuries. We don't need any more of those. So if you choose to represent sensitive subjects, which are people's real lives, race, disability, gender, sexuality, you need to do so responsibly, especially if you're coming out of my school, if you're coming out of one of my classrooms. And so we talk a lot about, can you as a white male write about a trans black woman? Can you, if you're cis het, write from a trans perspective at all? If you are straight, you should be writing from a queer perspective. And we talk about what are the ethics of doing so anyway. What are the ethics of doing so, knowing that there's a conversation going around, knowing that most of those writers would say if you're not marginalized, stay away from those topics. If you still choose to do it, how do you do so responsibly? And usually my answer is that you need to do so much research, you probably won't want to do it in the end. It usually deters them from it. But again, you need to be willing to listen to criticism, and you need to be willing to really ground yourself in the research, because people are telling you how to write about them effectively if you choose to write about the other, whatever that other is for you.
I have to say, these were the most enlightened, fantastic questions. Any audience I've ever been? I don't know. You guys are fantastic. Thank you so much for showing up on a Sunday night. Sue Ellen?
Yeah,